Hi, hello there, I'm Drake and welcome to a day on Dartmoor. And I'm speaking to you today from the greenhouse, and we're going to be planting wildflower seeds. And one of the reasons I'm doing that right now is because a few people have been asking about it, and I don't really need much excuse to put some plants in the ground. So here we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be planting just up some of the native perennials, and I could have used annuals, and I do have annuals as well. And annuals are great because you just get them for the 1 year. Perennials, just so you know, they come up year after year. You also may have heard of something called biannuals, which means that the plant comes up the first year, but it doesn't flower until the second year. And then once it flowers, it sets seeds and dies. So that's the difference between the three different ways of describing a plant. So we're just going to do perennials. And what I'm planting in these little modules, which are made of, these ones are made of coconut husks, I believe, but you can make them or have them made from cardboard. You can even use loo rolls, the cardboard insert from a loo roll. And all you have to do is, I use one of these old 6-packs, but if you stick them together close enough, that it helps hold their shape. So which way you do it, it's a useful way of the plant pot holding its shape. Now, the reason I'm actually planting them in these modules rather than scattering them on some pre-prepared land is that I can keep an eye on them, and they'll be much more successful at germinating. And when you go to the expense of buying seeds, it's nice to know that they're actually going to germinate. And if you've got them in pots where you can keep an eye on them, you can keep their moisture level up. And that's one of the things that really leads to the greatest number of failures with seeds, is that we water them nicely to begin with, but then we forget about them, or it's too dry outside, and we don't realize that when a seed starts germinating, it's very vulnerable, and if it gets dried out, it will just die. So by having them in these pots, you can keep an eye on them, keep them moist, and they will be much more successful at germinating. So we've got them in these pots also because wildflowers don't like being messed about with. They don't like their roots being messed about with. So this prevents that problem, because the roots are going to be contained in the cardboard pot, and you just plant the whole thing in the ground. I'm going to plant these in the meadow. Not everyone has a meadow. So you can plant them then directly, the whole pot, in your garden. Also, if you wish, and what I've done over here, in this fellow here, I've just used a container and I've planted it out pretty much exactly the same way I would be doing this way. So you can do them in a container, and you can grow them on your windowsill. And my only caveat to that, if you're growing things on your windowsill, bear in mind that the light that's coming through your window is coming from just one direction. And so your plant will tend to lean towards that light. And what you want to do to avoid that is, if you've got, say for example, I have this planted on my windowsill, is just rotate it 360 degrees around, perhaps every day. This will then prevent the plant from just growing in a bent form, and it will keep it more upright, and it will spread the light around all the leaves of the plant as it matures. So you can definitely do that with your windowsill. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, I've got some compost here, and I'm using seed compost. And seed compost is lower in nutrients than regular compost. And the reason why that's advantageous is that if you've got a lot of nutrients in there, and you don't have roots on your little seedlings, they're going to have a tough time. So it's better to have a low nutrient level. And also with wildflowers, they really don't need a very nutritious ground to grow in. So having something like a seed compost is perfect. So that's been done there, and then I'm just going to take one of these out, and I'm just going to firm it down. So each one of these is getting a bit of a firming down, and then the last one I'll swap over and firm that down. So they're all done, and I will then sprinkle on a bit of water. So that's nice and moist and well soaked. And then once that has been done, I will get my seeds, and they are very, very tiny little seeds, and I'll try and show you them here. I can already see what some of the varieties of plants are that are in here just by the shape of seed, but there you go. So very tiny. And what you're going to be doing is sprinkling around about, 5 to 10 seeds in each pot. You don't need to overfill it. You can go crazy and just fill it madly with seeds, and you'll have a wonderful display. But they will all be competing with each other. For my purposes, because I do want to plant these out in the meadow, I don't want to overfill them with flowers, because I'd rather have more pots and spread them out. But that's that for this. And then just to finish off, all I will do is add some more of the seed compost, which I've just mixed up with a bit of sand, and that will just help firm down the top of the pots. You don't need to mix in sand if you don't want to. I find it's just a bit helpful when it comes to watering, because the sand is a little bit more resistant to the action of watering, and is less likely to wash the seeds too deep into the ground. If the seeds are washed too deep into the ground or into the compost, they may have a harder time germinating. So that's the reason for doing this. All I'm doing is putting it about a half centimetre or less of soil on top, and it doesn't need very much, and that should just keep it all nice and damp in there over the course of its germination period. And I will just tap that down with my fingers, and that should bed those down nicely. And I'll keep these in the greenhouse, and again, as I said, I'll be able to keep an eye on them there. And then again, just one more watering, and there you go, and that's it. And these here are these are wildflowers in California. They're actually the California poppy, and I planted these a week ago, and as you can see, they're already sprouting up. I wouldn't put these out yet, they're still too small. I would wait until they get to this kind of size. So these aren't wildflowers. This is parsley, but this is the kind of size that you want to let your wildflowers get to before you pot them outside. Obviously, if you're going to keep them on the windowsill or keep them at home, then you just let them grow on. And really, that's it for wildflowers and planting wildflower seeds. And I thank you very much for your listening and your time, and I hope you have a really great day. So thank you, and goodbye from Dartmoor.